So, welcome everyone to our first meeting. I'm really excited to see you all, and I would like to thank you, of course, for accepting the invitation. And I hope that this will be an interesting exercise for all of us. We will get, I think, one of the best things that's coming out of those meetings and preparing for the meeting, etc., is the people that you meet. And from there, many good things can start in terms of our work and creating new collaborations, even friendships, and so on and so forth. So it's really very nice to see you all. I would like to begin by just introducing ourselves so that we get to know each other. I did send you this document this morning with the names and the titles and where everybody is from, but it's nice to just spend a few minutes for introductions. And I would like to begin the way I see you here on my screen. First of all, let me just say that I'm Lavros Sidosis. I'm from Greece originally. I worked for many years in Greece and also in the US. Now I'm only working here in the US. I created this institute. So let's talk a little bit about the institute also, since I have the podium. And the institute was created in Greece, in Leros, to signify that the Mediterranean lifestyle is something that it's worth exploring. We don't know much about it, and this is why we're here, but we feel, when I say we, myself and many others, we feel very fortunate to be able to have studied this field in the past several years, and also being able to explore it further in the years to come. Hi, George. Professor Chrousos is also with us.
Hello.
Professor Chrousos is in charge of of another task group, but I invited everybody to join us in this first task group meeting of the physical activity. So thank you very much, George, for joining in. So we're doing introductions. And so we started this institute again with these goals, and I will go back to that a little later. So should we start with Robert? I see Robert to my right.
Hi everyone, my name is Robert Bird. I'm from Hertfordshire in the UK, which is about 20 miles from London. My background is very much physical activity. I have an MSc in exercise and behavioural medicine and some postgraduate certifications from Imperial College in preventive cardiology. So my work is very much with patients or clients, if you like, that have pre-existing conditions or are on their way to some chronic disease. So most of my clients are diabetics, heart patients, cancer patients, recovering, and all of that kind of thing. My background, as I say, is very much physical activity. I started in the exercise industry in 1995 and very quickly realised, in the UK at least, that there was a huge gap between the medical profession and what the fitness industry were offering. So I kind of pursued a clinical route after that, which is where my studies took me. And I now have a lifestyle medicine centre in Hertfordshire, which has been open for 10 years. Unfortunately for me, I don't really have a GP referral pathway in my area, although I have tried to pursue that and will continue to do so. So most of my referrals are direct from the private sector, consultants, and via word of mouth. So I kind of have a big background in exercise, I guess, and that's why I've come along to this meeting. I met Lavros at the BSLM conference in North London this year and was interested in the way he spoke of the Mediterranean lifestyle. And it interests me immensely in how I can perhaps implement some of the things I learn here with some of my clients in the UK, although I do accept that our access to some of the lovely food and the lifestyle that you guys lead in the Mediterranean may be more difficult in the area that I work.
Great. Thank you, Robert. Moving to Anna.
Once again, hello everybody, I'm Anna. I'm from Poland. I'm a dentist. I also study nutrition, and in this moment I do less dentistry and more nutrition. I work in Children's Hospital at the diabetology department. So I work with children and families, mainly with diabetes type 1. So my work is nutrition coordinator in our hospital, and I just like Mediterranean lifestyle, and I would like to implement more lifestyle medicine in our education and to our families. So that's why I'm here, and I met Labros in London this year as well, and it was very inspiring meeting. So I would like to continue.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. Andrew?
Hi. So yeah, thanks Labros for inviting me to join the conference in general and this task group in particular. So you know, unlike you know many of the rest of you, I don't have any particular qualification in either exercise or the Mediterranean lifestyle. Background wise, I'm a GP partner in Clydebank, Scotland, which is a sort of post-industrial former shipbuilding town outside of Glasgow. So we look after about 10,000 patients or thereabouts who don't really tend to have a particularly Mediterranean lifestyle, really. So high burden of chronic disease and lots of inactivity and poor diets and social economic deprivation and alcohol use as well. So yeah, not a great deal of academia in my day-to-day work, but lots of interest. My sort of undergraduate degree before medicine was international public health policy, so always had an interest in this kind of thing, and personal interest in exercise and longevity, aging, frailty, etc. So I thought the conference sounded right up my street in terms of interests. So hopefully I'll also be able to contribute a little bit to the group.
Great, I'm sure you will. Thank you, Andrew. Carolina.
So hi everyone. I hope you can hear me well because I'm still driving the bus.
Yes, we can.
And so I'm Karolina Piątek. I'm from Poland, and I got interest into this group because of Labros, the lecture he gave on a British conference where we met. And actually, I'm a diabetes educator. So I educate people. I also advocate for them in the government. I also advocate for them in some research. So lately I've gained interest into this lifestyle medicine. I lead a foundation. I cooperate with some clinics. So I want to improve. I want to develop my education for patients and so hopefully I will help somehow, or you will help me get more information, and together we can do something interesting. So thank you very much one more time for accepting me here to this group.
Of course, thank you, Carolina. Natasha.
So my name is Anastasia Beneka. I am from Greece. I live in Greece. I'm professor at the Department of Physical Education and Sports Science in Komotini, but I live in Athens and I have to commute. My special expertise is physical rehabilitation. We design exercise programs for those who have musculoskeletal problems, not only injuries, sports injuries, but also chronic musculoskeletal problems. The truth is that half of my life, university life, research life, was about sports injuries. I used to work for a soccer team for Skoda Xanthi, but when I start having pain, muscle pain, neck pain, low back pain, and all this stuff, I changed my mind. So here I am. I want to discover more about the Mediterranean lifestyle Labros, and thank you for inviting me to this group. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dimitris?
Hi, everyone. My name is Dimitris. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Exeter in the southwest of the UK in England. I'm also Greek, as you can see from my massive name. So my research, I'm within the Children's Health and Exercise Research Center for more than 10 years now. Our research has been focused on physical activity, musculoskeletal health, body composition, and we've run a number of studies over the last years. So I'm also interested now to see the physical activity perspective into the traditional Mediterranean lifestyle. So I got in touch with Labros once I've seen the great initiative to create that institute and start this nice piece of work.
Great, thank you, Dimitri. Emanuela?
Hi, this is Emma. I'm a family doctor. I'm working in the emergency department in the last 3 years, but I love the slow medicine concept. I brought the Romanian Society of Lifestyle Medicine to life here. I'm very keen on sports, and I'm having or developing some programs to encouraging my patients to engage more in this physical activity stuff. I'm not a researcher, but I hope I will be able to contribute as much as I can, and I look forward to learn more about the Mediterranean lifestyle medicine in general. And thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emma. So it's Emma, not Emanuela. Huh?
Emma.
It's the same thing. Great, thank you. Wafa?
Hi everyone, my name's Wafa. I'm from Sudan, but I'm currently living and working in Manchester in the UK. So I'm a GP trainee in the first year, and I've always been really interested in chronic diseases and preventing health. With my clinical background, I've also done a lot of public health. And my doctorate is in looking at kind of how we can reverse chronic diseases. So I came across lifestyle medicine when I was on a personal journey for improvement. But it's something I definitely think that we can be used with patients and even on a population level. So I attended the conference, the BSLM conference online, and I heard Labros' talk and I thought it was brilliant. So I had to join. So that's why I'm here.
Well, thank you for the good words, and thank you for joining. George?
I'm George Krousos. I'm an endocrinologist and pediatrician. I've done work in the past on stress effects on the organism. I think one of the pluses of the Mediterranean lifestyle is better coping with stress. So we'll see, we'll find out.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for joining the group. So it's, as you probably realized, this is a very diverse group of people, and we are here. We're brought here because we have an interest, first of all, in lifestyle medicine. I think this is the common thread there. But the point of this meeting that we are setting up for, and let me share my screen so I can. So the goal of this, can you see my screen? Yes?
Yes, yes.
Yes, great. So the goal of this meeting, as you probably know already, is to define the traditional Mediterranean lifestyle. The Mediterranean lifestyle is one of the lifestyles that potentially we can use as clinicians, physicians, or psychologists and nutritionists, etc., that we're working with patients to help us come up with a plan that will be easy to implement and something that we can all feel comfortable with, because the evidence will be there to support what we are proposing our patients to do. At the moment, there's no such thing as a complete paradigm for lifestyle medicine education or treatment protocol. And this is because what we are doing right now is that we are following whatever the modern medicine and modern research has found. So in other words, we are proposing for people to follow this kind of dietetic advice. We ask them to exercise 3 times a week, 150 minutes, according to the latest suggestions by the American College of Sports Medicine, for example. Then we're asking them to sleep for at least 7-8 hours based on the latest sleep recommendations. So all of this, what we are doing right now is we are following recommendations that they have been produced by current, modern medicine, modern research. One problem there is that these things change almost yearly, even, more often, some of them. And a very good example, of course, is the nutrition area, where nutrition recommendations change drastically from one the American nutrition organizations, etc. They come up with guidelines for the Americans every 4 years. They are very different, almost every 4 years. This is because we are learning more things and newer things. So of course they need to change if we learn new things. So one way to approach this thing is to follow modern medicine again and follow the recommendations of the various organizations, which of course sometimes they don't agree with each other. The other way is to go back and look at it from another perspective. So we know that in some areas of the world, people, for some reason, they live better and healthier and maybe longer lives as well. And this is the reason why the Mediterranean diet came up as a proposal for a healthy dietary program. It is because it was found from all the studies, the 7-country study, etc., that people in the Mediterranean region, they live long lives, relatively free from non-communicable diseases. So the question there was, okay, if they do live those nice, good lives and healthy and happy, whatever, so what is it behind it? Why do they do that? And for some reason, they focused those studies mostly on diet. So that's the other way to do it. In other words, looking at a population that they're living a good life, healthy, etc., and go and copy what they are doing or what they used to be doing, and do that. And in this case, hopefully you will have the same outcomes as they did. So this is, in fact, what I think we were trying to do, or we're thinking when we are discussing the term Mediterranean lifestyle. So starting from the term Mediterranean diet, which is very well known, very well studied, however, still not very clear on what exactly we mean when we say Mediterranean diet. First of all, there are Mediterranean diets. There's not one diet. Everybody around the Mediterranean, they have some common things, but they are also very different. But anyway, over the years, we have come to accept that there is some type of a Mediterranean dietary program that has a few common things. For example, olive oil as the main oil of the diet, lots of fruits and vegetables, a little bit of wine with meals, and then not that much meat, even though meat is also part of the diet. So these are some of the common places of the Mediterranean diet that we have come to accept as the Mediterranean diet, quote unquote. However, we know from data over the last 20 years that just by looking at the diet, you cannot explain what has happened in the Mediterranean region over the past hundreds of years, etc., which was a better overall quality of life, of course, compared with what we know from older studies like from Northern Europe and from the US, etc. So when compared with them, the quality of life was better, but it could not be explained entirely by the dietary factors. Many other factors started coming into play, and such as the type of physical activity these people have been doing, the socialization, the way they cope with stress, etc., etc. So eventually, we have come to realize and accept that diet alone is not really what explains the Mediterranean, let's say, good health, etc. And this is why the Mediterranean diet pyramid, which, sorry, I don't have it with me, other than the food, it has also on other aspects of lifestyle. It has the wine, the eating together, conviviality, socialization, physical activity, dance, etc. So in reality, the Mediterranean diet pyramid is not a Mediterranean diet pyramid, it's a Mediterranean lifestyle pyramid. So this is where we are right now, that we know that the Mediterranean diet cannot explain the good things that are happening in the Mediterranean region, or used to happen anyway. We'll talk about this later. And we need to move to the Mediterranean lifestyle. However, what is exactly Mediterranean lifestyle? I mentioned before that even though we have been studying the Mediterranean diet for the past 40 years very intensely, still we don't know much, other than that their characteristics are, they're healthy. But what is it exactly? Again, we don't know 100%. So the problem then is much bigger when you start talking about Mediterranean lifestyle. And this is something that we need to define. So in other words, what do we mean when we say Mediterranean type physical activity or movement pattern? This is what our group will deal with, this question. What do we mean when we say Mediterranean style stress management? What is it and how does it differ by others, from Chinese or from, I don't know, Africa or something, South Africa, because North Africa, of course, is part of the Mediterranean as well. So what do we mean when we say socialization the Mediterranean way? And how is that different from North European, for example, way of socializing, etc.? So we have created then, in preparation for this meeting that we will have in June, we have come up with those 6 groups, that each one of those groups will be looking at the data, the available data, that could help us come up with a definition for this specific aspect that we're looking at. So in our case, for the physical activity and the movement patterns, what we will try to do is to attempt at least to answer the questions, first of all, what types of physical activity and movement patterns are included in the traditional Mediterranean lifestyle? And the word traditional here is very, very important. So let me just say that please interrupt me anytime you want, just because for some reason, when I'm at this presentation, I cannot see you. Oh, now I can see you. Okay. So please interrupt me, just speak up. I don't want this to be a lecture, but I just wanted in the beginning to present a few things so that we can discuss later in more detail. So the word traditional here is a very important term. As we're looking at the Mediterranean lifestyle in terms of physical activity and movement, it's important to keep in mind that we're looking for the traditional, because as we all know, humans were living kind of a similar kind of lives for thousands of years. And then suddenly in the last 50 or 100 years, things have changed so dramatically. Of course, our biology cannot follow this huge change. And of course, it's probably this change resulted in the current diseases, the modern diseases, as we call them. So we need to focus on the traditional. So what was happening in the Mediterranean region up until maybe 100 years ago, or in Greece and other areas that they were not very developed, even up until 50 years ago. So how was life then? And what was the lifestyle, again, for many hundreds or thousands of years up until 50 years ago? So we're not talking about the modern lifestyle of the Mediterranean. Okay, we are talking about the traditional. So that will always should be there in our minds, even if we don't mention it all the time, but traditional is the point. So what types of physical activity and movement patterns were included in this traditional Mediterranean lifestyle? What were people doing in terms of physical activity and movement, which maybe explains why they were healthier? Since now we know that physical activity is important for health. So what kind of physical activity they were doing? What was their part of their lifestyle? And of course, the next question is, how can we then use this knowledge to improve the health of our patients? What was the volume, intensity, and frequency of this activity moving patterns in the traditional lifestyle, Mediterranean lifestyle? So volume, intensity, and frequency, these are terms that we're using now to explain physical activity. And they're the terms that we're using when we are discussing recommendations. Is this something that applies to looking at the traditional Mediterranean lifestyle? I don't know. I don't think that, I shouldn't say I don't think, because we shouldn't say that before we research the available data, but this is something that we should keep in mind, because when the time comes to prescribe exercise, you need to say something. You need to tell them, if we decide that, dancing is a good thing for you as part of the Mediterranean lifestyle, you need to tell them, how often you should dance, once a year, once a month, so we need some kind of maybe intensity and frequency and whatever. And then what are the movement characteristics and the environment of the traditional Mediterranean lifestyle? This is, of course, could be part also of the previous 2 points, but it's something else here that we need to be clear, because we are not all of us have a background in physical activity or exercise science. There's a big difference between exercise and physical activity and movement. Okay, exercise is something that now we perceive it as something that is organized, that you have to do it in a specific time of the day, with specific volume, intensity, frequency, etc.
Guided,
yeah, exactly, or even guided. Thank you, Natasha. Physical activity, on the other part, is everything we do, is movement. When you wake up in the morning to go to the restroom, you're doing physical activity, you're working. Anything that moves your muscles, anything that is using calories to move your muscle away, to move your body from one point to the other, is physical activity. When you dance is physical activity. When you run to catch the bus is physical activity. When you go up the stairs is physical activity. When you have sex is physical activity. everything that has to do with life, everyday life, is physical activity. Now, if you go to the supermarket and you carry back the bags from the supermarket, and instead of taking the elevator, you go up the stairs, then it's like you're doing Stairmaster and lifting weights at the same time, and of course cardio. So anything that we do, you don't have to go to the gym to do exercise. You don't have to go out and run for half an hour to do exercise. And of course, this was the point up until, again, a few years ago, that only athletes in the past, they were doing exercise as the way we see it now. Everybody else, they were just moving around, either because they had to work. Most of the work at that time was labor intensive, in fact, or it was the everyday chores, when you had to wash the clothes, when you had to go out and collect firewood, etc., etc. So we need to start thinking in those terms when we discuss physical activity in a traditional lifestyle in general, not only the Mediterranean lifestyle, but in our case, is the Mediterranean lifestyle. And finally, what are the health effects of the traditional Mediterranean physical activity and movement patterns? We have a very good idea of, because now we have good studies, prospective studies, and done in a way that we can be almost certain that the results are valid in terms of the effect of Mediterranean diet on health. So we know that some aspects of the Mediterranean dietary pattern are very healthy for you. Do we know that about the patterns of the Mediterranean physical activity pattern? So in other words, if we find out that most of a big part of the traditional Mediterranean physical activity and movement pattern was, let's say, dancing, or just walking to go to your work, or something else. Is this thing something healthy? So let me just give you an example. Of course, you would say, yeah, of course, it's physical activity, it's healthy. We know that now. Well, but there are some aspects of the Mediterranean lifestyle that maybe now we do not consider them healthy. For example, smoking. Many people in the traditional Mediterranean lifestyle, they used to smoke, and they still do. So we know now that smoking is bad for you, but however, if it was part of an overall healthy lifestyle, how can we discount that 100% right away? Maybe one cigarette is good, maybe it's better than zero, I don't know. Same thing, of course, with alcohol. Up until a few weeks ago, we thought that, alcohol is probably, a couple of glasses of wine. It's good for maybe cardiovascular health. We always knew that for cancer, it was a no-no, zero tolerance for cancer. Now it comes out that, even for cardiovascular disease, maybe we're not sure if wine is good. So of course, everything is changing, but the point is that if we find the other group that they're looking at substances and alcohol, etc., if they find that part of the Mediterranean lifestyle was for people to have a glass of wine with their meals, what should we do then in our case, as we are looking to propose what the Mediterranean lifestyle pattern is? Are we going to say that, look, we are proposing, or we're saying that these people, they had a good lives, etc., as we are accepting them to have, and part of their lives was also to have a drink. But then people from nowadays, they will come and say, yeah, but now we know that drinking is not good for you. Well, this is something that, we have to discuss. We have to think about it as we are preparing for this meeting, and that's what we are going to do mostly in Leros. when we're not having fun, of course, is to deal with this kind of questions, and how do we approach this question, and what is it that we're doing at the end of the day to in order to get to our next point, which is the deliverables. So for us, we need to deliver something at the end of this exercise that we're doing here, and then of course at the end of the meeting in June we need to deliver some more. So for our group now, what we need to deliver by June is a short paper describing what we found as we were looking at our aims. So what kind of physical activity movement pattern what do we call traditional Mediterranean style physical activity and movement pattern? We need to come up with a proposed definition of this thing. What is it exactly? And we need to prescribe this. We need to come up with a proposal that we prescribe physical activity the Mediterranean style. And finally, we need to come up with a presentation as a group, of course. And then during our meeting in Leros, each group will be presenting their own findings, similar exactly to what we're doing here. And then the big problem will be how you put all of these things together. Because again, and I'm finishing here, the point is not to create 6 silos again, and everybody start looking at their own thing. So we're looking at physical activity, the others are looking at nutrition, another group is looking at stress, another group is looking at substances. We need to bring all of these things together, because this is what lifestyle medicine is. It looks at the whole thing. So how do these things come together? The Mediterranean style physical activity with the Mediterranean style diet, with the Mediterranean style sleep patterns, with the Mediterranean style stress management. So bringing it together, then we will come up with a product that we will call Mediterranean lifestyle paradigm, or something else, we'll find a better name. And then hopefully, if we agree on this, we will publish this thing. And then after that, the goal will be to make this specific and turn it into a practical guide for physicians to be able, and clinicians to be able to take it and say, okay, you have, I would like to use, methods of lifestyle medicine on my patient. Okay, this is what I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use the paradigm of the Mediterranean style lifestyle, because I have here in front of me a paper that explains and presents in a clear and concise way that this is a good and healthy paradigm, and also I have the tools easy for me to do my work with the patients. So I'm sorry for the very, very long introduction, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all kind of in the same line. I will, you have the deliverables and the aims. They are part of the document that I shared with you this morning. So I would like now to open the floor for comments before we move to the next step. We will try to keep the meeting, at 1 hour and 15 minutes at the latest. So I would like to open the floor for comments first of all, before we move to the next step, which is what should we do and how should we work in trying to accomplish those aims and the goals.
Just thinking. I think from my perspective, looking at what you're saying, Labros, obviously the thing that attracted me to this whole group in the first place was the complex interaction between all of the paradigms you're talking about. And there's no doubt, I think probably the biggest challenge we're going to have initially is coming up with frequency, intensity, and time, because my impression of the traditional Mediterranean lifestyle is that one of its real strengths was the fact that it wasn't really very prescriptive back in the day. That's the impression I get. It was people living their lives in a certain way and kind of achieving longevity. And I think certainly from my perspective in the country I work in, that doesn't exist. People are highly stressed, and even the context of having a glass of wine. If you have a glass of wine after a stressful day at work and that glass of wine turns to 2, then it's probably not very healthy. But if you have a glass of wine with your friends in a social situation where you're having fun, it probably is much healthier. And from that perspective, I guess my initial thought process is, how are we going to come up with a method of prescribing a particular thing for a particular population group when the traditional lifestyle probably didn't lead itself towards that. I mean, I don't know what anyone else thinks in the group. That would be my initial thought process.
Yeah, this is definitely a difficulty, and that's why we're here, because if we had the answer to this, then we would not have the chance to see each other today. So, it's a good goal, I think. Challenging. Andrew, would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with everything that Robert was saying. How do you apply a completely different way of living to, a sort of modern context? I suppose I'm wondering, when, in terms of taking the next step, how are we going to kind of progress this? What are we defining traditional as? I mean, even within Greece, industrialization will have happened at different rates in different areas. So, my first thought is, what kind of time periods and in what location would we specifically be looking at? Just going, I suppose, on the basis of when were people living well and a long time, perhaps in the Greek islands in the 50s, or even further back. It's quite difficult to, obviously that's the whole point, trying to define it. That's why it's a difficult question, isn't it? But that's my kind of first thought on it.
Yeah, I think.
Dimitri?
You want to reply, Labros?
No. I have no reply. I mean, that's the challenge here. It's gonna be difficult. We need to think all of this from the beginning. Dimitri.
So I did a quick search. So I was just thinking, following up from Robert and Andrea, to see if we can find any data, because when we talk about traditional Mediterranean diet, we need to actually go back in time and see those movement patterns back on the day, which I'm quite certain that we don't have any data to support and quantify, for example, volume intensity or the movement patterns. So with a traditional scientific way, if we're going to search in PubMed or try to find articles, I don't think it will work, but we'll need to probably think a different way from the historic perspective and see if we want to define these. I'm thinking from the practical way, how we can do it, possibly speak with historians and see how the movement patterns were, which we know possibly it was higher because the nature of work as well back on the day it was different, especially for in the Mediterranean region and in general, even here in the UK, it was different. So it was more labor and more movement related. So the whole physical activity started like with one of the bus studies, the London bus studies in London, how sedentary they were and how physically active, how the physical activity was affected through the type of work that they did. So back on the day, we think they had lots of labor work in the fields with olive trees and everything else. All those movement patterns, potentially, even if data cannot support it, it was higher. But to define with the modern terms, those patterns, I think it will be very challenging from the scientific point of view. So probably from the historic perspective, we can see, probably someone needs to try to find a historian or how to approach those aims. Yeah, I think that's what I had in mind, to see how we can practically formulated and based on the data we have, or how it can be applied in nowadays and everything else.
I mean, Labros, if I can ask, the book that Dimitri kind of referenced some of the stuff on this article that you sent us. I've had a quick look at the book on the Mediterranean Lifestyle, second edition. I mean, the gentleman who wrote that book, who produced that text, I'm guessing, would he kind of be able to lead us down the path of where he got his research from? I'm guessing that's where this extracts come from on the document, and wasn't it? Because I had a look at that book today, which I'm very happy to purchase if it's going to be something that's educational for all of us. And I'm sure some of you have already got it, but this particular author must have got his information from somewhere in some context. I mean, does anyone, Dimitri, do you know where they got that from? Is that something that you're aware of, or?
No, but that's a good way. If we find like one source, so probably we need to approach that source to see what they have done and where they gather all the data.
Well, I'll be very happy to buy that book if you guys haven't got. I'm sure you've got one too, a few of you, but it's available here in the UK. I looked at it yesterday and I thought it might be a good starting point for a resource at least.
Which book are you referring to, Robert?
It's called I'll try and find it while I'm talking to you guys. It's called Traditional Mediterranean Lifestyle. I looked at the Dimitri took an extract that I looked at when you sent an original email out the other day, and it came from that text, I believe. The Traditional Mediterranean Lifestyle was introduced by a scientific world. Let me have a look, see if I can find the book.
Okay, you guys. So it's part of it's one of the references in the document I sent you.
It's a textbook. Let's have a look, see if it is here.
Oh.
But I looked at it yesterday based on some of the text that was on the original document and thought that book looks really interesting.
Yeah, we can look at it. Of course, and now this is a good time actually to mention that this group is not closed. It's an open group. And in fact, now I just see one of my students, Mehdi, who joined us. And I think he had problems joining before. So the point is that the group is not closed. If we find people that they're interested, or if we feel that we need to approach, for example, a historian that would be, probably has worked in this area, we can definitely approach them and invite them and ask, we can have other people joining, of course. So yeah, that's a good point, Robert.
I've just found the text. It's called The Mediterranean Diet and Evidence-Based Approach, second edition, and it has different chapters relating to different areas of the Mediterranean lifestyle: diet, socioeconomic factors, religious fasting, food security, etc., etc., etc. So it looks like this could be quite a useful place to start for at least some of the things we're trying to do. I'm very happy to purchase this book if no one else has got it yet, because it's all very useful stuff for me to use as a reference. It's just trying to see if I can show you on the screen.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of you guys are probably aware of that, but it looks like it's got some text and different chapters that would be useful as at least the starting references.
There are many books, on the Mediterranean diet that they, as I said in the beginning, they are focusing on the diet, but of course, as they've come to research the whole thing, realize that other factors, you cannot just look at the diet alone. It dependent of anything else that's happening in your life. So that's why we're coming back to the concept of lifestyle instead of diet. But definitely, we will. That will be the work that we'll do. We will try to find those sources that will help us define this thing. Natasha, I think you wanted to say something. Yeah.
I think I would go with Dimitris. I had similar, I think, way of thinking. The first thing that I have done, I've tried to make a research on PubMed, etc., trying to find some keywords, etc. I found nothing. The second problem that I had is that always my mind was going to Hippocrates and Platon and Aristoteles, because you know that we have a lot of source about how they were addressing the spirit of moderation in exercise, and expressing views about sport, about physical activity. And they claimed that any exaggeration could turn against nature, and clearly declared that overtraining is always wrong. So I'm biased, not because they were saying that, because I'm already in this, I'm in the same route, I would say. And I think that I'm biased to do the research, because if somebody would ask me, if I was in a TV show right now and they would ask me, what would you think, what would you suggest about exercise and give some guidelines for health, I would tell them about volume, intensity, frequency, and all this stuff in 10 minutes. I don't mean that I know everything. I mean that the research so far and all the work we have done and all those experimental designs that we, all of us here, I think, in the meeting, we have already some evidence-based results. Okay, so how am I going to do this research now? It's a sociological research. So we will have to start to see which are the Mediterranean countries and trying to look at their lifestyle 100 years ago, 50 years ago, or the opposite.
Well, that's the point. You know, we're talking about Mediterranean lifestyle. We have an institute called Mediterranean Lifestyle Institute. So maybe we need to close the institute at the end of this discussion. Maybe there's
no way.
No reason to have an institute, because Mediterranean lifestyle may be something that we cannot define.
No, I mean that we would go with the opposite side. What is Mediterranean? I mean, what is the climate? What are the habits?
Exactly.
For example, we take a nap, not in Athens, but in the rest of Greece, we still have a nap. I'm sure about South France. I'm sure about Italians. I mean that we start from the habits, and then the climate, of course, the sociological, there is also much evidence, I must say, Labros, I forgot to tell you, because I have already discussed with this professor of the history in physical activity that I've talked about, and he's ready to collaborate if we want. So he gave me another explanation of why these Mediterranean countries have a different way of living, because all of us were much influenced by the political changes and any cultural change as well. And he told me that there are sources explaining that. But I'm not so sure if that's the way we want to
again
address all these questions.
That's a good point, excellent point. So what you said before is that from your own data and from the data that, you know, the current data, you can tell us in 10 minutes what is the proper type of activity, duration, intensity, etc.
Yes, but addressing the problems, the musculoskeletal problems, that is my expertise.
Exactly.
I mean, I go for moderate exercise. I wouldn't go for any successes, for any high level, high intensity, whatever.
Exactly. And the same thing, someone could say that, look, I can tell you right now what to do because we have the American College of Sports Medicine latest recommendations on physical activity. The problem though, and I think that's one of the reasons that we are here today as lifestyle medicine, is that those recommendations for physical activity, for diet, for other things, they're not working.
Absolutely.
The population is not getting any healthier. The population is getting exactly the opposite. So the point is that this is not working the way we're doing it right now. Are we doing it wrong? Should we go back probably and see what those people were doing, apparently successfully, and that's why they had a better lifestyle? In other words, instead of telling my patients, look, go and do 150 minutes of exercise or 70 minutes of higher intensity exercise and 2 sessions of muscle activities, etc. Instead of telling them, I should probably tell them that, you know, you need to find friends and go out and walk, find
Slow
friends,
down.
go out and dance, find friends and, you know, use always the stairs instead of, you know, fighting who's going to go to buy something, fight, you know, because you want to go and the others, you know, they don't want to go. So maybe we need to find another way and
Sit less. Sorry for interrupting you. Sit less. Sitting is death.
exactly. So,
And
but-
don't exaggerate when you do something. So we sit 8-10 hours a day, and then we go and we look for intensity in exercise.
exactly. So,
This is
but we need
crazy.
to find the evidence to support this thing, because okay, who said that? Labros, who is Labros? Who cares? But now we have the evidence that we will look for it. Maybe it's not the traditional way that we're looking at PubMed. We have to go in and find the evidence that will help us come up with the idea of Mediterranean type physical activity in order to
Traditional.
always traditional. That doesn't mean that we will find something that maybe we don't know already. Maybe we will find, you know, some of the things that I mentioned, but the thing is that we will find that these people, by doing this kind of things, they were probably healthier. So I would like to ask others to contribute here. Emma?
Just the example that came in my mind regarding how we can collect data. Of course, if there will be a lot of data, we probably didn't need to struggle so much to find ways. But this is the point, I guess, also. I feel like we have to search to bring in the light and to make it very clear for everybody what the regular activity this longevity people they had back in time. Maybe for you it's very obvious living in such islands when people used to walk a lot and climb stairs. But for us, for instance, it's not so clear. So I guess any paradigm or any protocol that we can create, watching or evaluating the ancient, how to say, people, it's useful. Let's think about Sparta and the gladiators. It wasn't only the diet that made them strong and I don't know, with a lot of muscles, but I think it was more than that. But this was just of course it's not about the heavy working outs that the gladiators had, but I think we should talk more with the sociologists in that area and to bring in the light what kind of how a day looks like, a regular day for them, how many hours a day they were moving without sitting or something like this. It's I think it's will be not impossible to quantify this general activity. So yeah, I find it very useful. Of course, it's challenging. Maybe we will have more meetings to create a strategy, but I think we might have some solutions in the end.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Emma. And actually, you brought up a very good point when you mentioned, you know, maybe sociologists or others. The thing here is that none of those things happen itself, and it's in a silo again. Because when you dance, for example, dance is a physical activity, but also is a very great stress reliever. It's also socialization. So right there, you touched 3 of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine: stress, physical activity, and social connections. At least, of course, there's the nutrition part of it, because when you dance, you're burning calories, so you will need to replace them. So nutrition is also another part. So in reality, what we're doing, it's connected to many of those pillars that we're talking about, and that's the good thing about it, and that's why we're here again. We are discussing lifestyle medicine. We're not in a physical activity conference or a whatever nutrition conference. We're in a lifestyle, but we're looking at the various parts, but also keeping in mind that you have to think about what else is happening at the same time. Not only physical activity. The person is happy when he's dancing, but maybe unhappy if he's on a treadmill, just walking there for half an hour alone and totally bored. I mean, these are 2 different things. Maybe in terms of calories and they're similar, but they're not the same. Andrew, sorry we took a little longer. Yes, you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thanks very much. Sorry, I just need to go and dash. But lovely meeting you all, and see you soon. I'll catch up with the recording later on.
Bye bye.
Yes, I will send the recording to everyone. So, yeah, it's a very important point. We need to think about it very strongly.
Labros, your example that you gave at the conference of the island, where people, you interviewed that old gentleman who was, his kind of whole persona and his whole attitude to life and all of the things that he'd achieved and his longevity. I mean, that was a really good example of, obviously, that was a successful outcome. Do we have access to a cohort of people that we can interview, for example, who might, that kind of thing, get real life experiences of someone who's achieved that? And I'm sure there's many other people on the island as well who have kind of achieved the same thing. Just you living their life the way they live it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is also part of our research in the future. We need to start looking at, most of the studies in this area. We have done also many studies the past 20 years, but they were focused on nutrition, for some reason. We did have some data on others, but now we need to start looking at it in the holistic way. So ask the question at the same time. Dancing, yeah, but what else you were doing along with dancing? Before, after? You were drinking, you were happy, you were not. So George also has to go. So let's finish up by, I'm sorry, Wafa, would you like to say something?
Yeah, so I was just thinking, I was listening to everyone, and I think from a personal experience, even though it's not directly in the Mediterranean, I did go back to like northern Sudan a lot as a child and as an adult. And some of the traditions that we had often centered around music and dancing in groups. And there was a lot of food there was a lot of joking and laughter. So I think if we kind of go back to our own experiences, having had some sort of Mediterranean lifestyle background, to kind of see what were the things in our own lives that we've experienced that we think might be starting points that can point us towards certain things. So for me, for example, I know that like social dancing is a big part of what makes up a really great lifestyle. And just searching on the literature here, I can see that there are things that there are papers that are pointing to, for example, communities of dance, like social dancing in Malta, similarly things in Spain. So we can maybe brainstorm what we initially as a group think is a Mediterranean movement or lifestyle, and then take it from there and see where the literature fits in, and see if there are any case studies, and then go from there. That might be a great way to start.
Yeah, excellent point. And in fact, you brought something else here, which is when we're talking about Mediterranean, this and that, doesn't mean, of course, that it's only part of the Mediterranean region, the dancing. It's everywhere. People dance together, they eat together, they have fun together. So, but since we're talking about the Mediterranean, we need to define what is it exactly there. That I don't think that we can ever say that this is exclusive to the Mediterranean region, but maybe the dance along with the olive oil, along with the, taking a nap in the middle of the day, along with something else, will create a product that we will call Mediterranean lifestyle, which might be a little different than the Sudanese lifestyle, for example, or the Chinese, even though they see Chinese also dance, but they don't drink olive oil. They don't use olive oil. So anyone else before we move to the second one? Mehdi, yes.
Excuse me. At first, I should say hello to all. Thank you for inviting me. And when you are talking about to historic lifestyle, maybe we can use some research proposal to start some preparing some questionnaire for elderly in nursing homes. Maybe you could ask some questions about these different factors, about socialization, about physical activity levels, and their habits, what they did in the past when they were child, and what was the relationship between their family and their friends. Maybe it could be useful. For example, now I saw that there are different parts of Mediterranean region, and it could be a good idea if, for example, if we can use 100, for example, 100 elderly people from each area. Maybe you can find some idea that could be in line or not in line with some data that we can get it in the internet. Maybe they are in line and maybe not in line. And it could be a bit, it can make some data stronger than before. To tell that, yes, for example, it is their lifestyle, it is their Mediterranean lifestyle, it's not just Mediterranean diet, and maybe it could be good.
So Mehdi actually brings up a very good point, which is if we're not able to find this data, maybe we need to go back and generate the data. So there are still people in those islands, not only islands, the Mediterranean region in general, that they are, 80 and 100 years old. Definitely they've lived most of their lives under this traditional Mediterranean lifestyle. So maybe the data that we cannot find, we can generate it. And
that will be my suggestion as well.
Yeah.
That will have like strong novelty from scientific point of view. And also it will provide objective data, but it will be tricky to find like people that they live the traditional Mediterranean lifestyle. And then we can use different methods. Even if we start with basic questionnaires, for example, I think that will be the way forward, at least for what we are setting as deliverables. But that will have lots of interest, and I think it will worth the effort for something novel in the literature to show it based on actual data. I know in blue zones that there hasn't been much research around the physical activity, and that's something that we could potentially focus to if we want to provide something strong.
And of course, this kind of data, this kind of research should be done in a way that previous research should have been done also, not just asking about one specific factor of all of this and discount everything else. Like we've been discussing the last 30 years, what is the miracle food that the people in Ikaria eat and they live forever? It's yogurt, or is this kind of legume or something, as if there's one thing, magic bullet that, if you do anything else, everything else, terribly, this one thing will make you live forever and be healthy, etc. So we need to look at the whole thing. So again, like you said, one of our deliverables could be that we are suggesting that there is a problem here, a big hole that we need to go and research and come up with the data that will help us. But again, the first exercise here what we have to do is to look at what is it available, what can we find. And I would like to, unless someone has something to say, I would like to move to the next step here, which is before we miss any other people. The next step is, sorry, let me share my screen. So the next step is assigning tasks. That's my favorite part of the discussion every time when we're assigning tasks. And so I need a co-coordinator. I'm coordinating supposedly this thing. So I need a co-coordinator, and I have someone in mind. Let me see why I cannot. So I would like to ask Dimitris to help me with this, if you're okay, Dimitri.
I'm happy to help. Yeah, it depends how much time it entails to consider like some of the other things I have running. But yeah, we can discuss that.
It takes less time than you think. So because you're very clever, otherwise I would not have asked you. So I was thinking, and I need your feedback here. I was thinking to come up with 3 groups, so we can group, you know, create subgroups, and look at this. And based on what we discussed up to this point, maybe divide this time from the beginning of time to early 1900s, which is when we don't have any data, the way we discuss data now, you know, scientific data. But there is plenty of data starting from, you know, Hippocrates, of course, and his written books, you know, Peridietis, about diet and everything else, which also includes many interesting things on physical activity, because from that time, people, physicians and you know, philosophers, etc., they were always looking at the person as a whole. They were never talking about only one specific thing. They were always talking how other factors might affect and may come into play. So from there, and looking at sources from a, you know, sociology, historical perspective, sociological perspective, and others, that could be an interesting, you know, task over there. The second group should probably start looking at what is it available between, you know, in the modern times, and again, by just doing a quick search on PubMed, you will not find, especially if you use keywords like Mediterranean physical activity. Of course, you will not find anything, but we need to look at it in a way, in a clever way, to find data that might be also hidden into papers that they're looking at, or their title is only nutrition, for example. Or in there, we might have, and we might find hidden data on exercise. And the other part is how this Mediterranean physical activity appears as part of the general lifestyle, Mediterranean lifestyle. Because again, at the end of the day, we need to bring all of these things together. So I would like to propose this for the next time, before we meet next time. I would like you to send me proposals for which group would you be interested in joining. And the way we're going to do that is, it won't be too much work. Again, everybody is very busy. We have a few months in front of us, and there are plenty of us to come up with this idea. There will be 3 leaders in this group. I will take the last one, the physical activity, as part of the lifestyle, trying to get it together. And I need 2 people to lead the other 2, from the beginning to 1900s. And Natasha, she already spoke about this, and she has thought about it, and maybe with, again, the help of your historian on physical activity and others.
I've done also some research so far, so I have a clue, not too much.
Exactly.
too many resources, but I have a clue and already found the combination of the diet, exercise, and habits. That I think that's another word that we should use when we want to search, because habits and everyday life or lifestyle and etc. Should hide also physical activity or any other kind of movement.
Exactly.
So I'm in the first one. I go with the first one. The most ancient. Maybe I'm the oldest after you.
No, you're
So
not.
I would go with the ancient Greek.
The beginning of time. Wafa, would you like to say something?
No.
No. So Natasha then will lead this subgroup. Who's gonna lead the other one, 1900s to today?
Just trying to
Right.
think.
Maybe Dimitris. Huh? Dimitri, that's the co-coordination, actually.
So when you say published research, do you mean in terms of books or PubMed articles, or what sort of published research we're looking for?
Yeah, I'm talking about contemporary research, you know, the way we're thinking it now. Studies, you know, starting from epidemiological up, RCTs, I don't know if there are any RCTs in this case, but yeah.
So do we need to define also some of the keywords for that, or how we're thinking to do it, or do we want to split it in more or more members, just to make sure that we'll cover everything?
Exactly. That will be the goal for the next meeting. After we create those 3 subgroups, then they will among themselves, you know, they can talk a little bit and exchange ideas. And then when we're coming back to the next meeting, we will define exactly how everyone is doing and how they plan on doing their work. And then amongst ourselves, amongst those small subgroups, we can again we can, you know, decide who's doing what, so that everybody doesn't do much. Of course, one person is always you need one person to take the lead there and come up with the final product. But again, I don't want us to spend too much time. I know everybody's busy, but I think this is an interesting thing, and we will learn a lot in this process. So let's say that the first group is led by Natasha, the second by Dimitris, the third by me. I would like the rest of the groups to send me a note on which one of those subgroups you would like to to participate, and we will try to, of course, balance all of them so that we have a similar number of people in all 3 groups. And again, everyone, depending on their background, they will contribute whatever they can in terms of time and knowledge, etc. And then the next
also,
step, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Natasha.
I think also that the keywords that Dimitris mentioned is a deliverable by itself, because if we conclude in a number of keywords, this is very important. This means that we have made an initial search. We have noticed that these keywords give us some information, so we should put it all together and share between us.
Exactly.
I think.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we need to do. So I know that most of us, you know, have other meetings coming up. So I would like to close it here. The next step here would be, again, we will meet at some point, maybe in a month or so. I will call another meeting. In the meantime, I would ask you to send me your preferences in terms of subgroups, and hopefully, you know, in the next week or so, we will form those subgroups, and we can start working and coming up then in our next meeting and discuss the challenges, discuss how we're thinking of going forward, and again, another chance for us to see each other here which is it's great. Has been a great pleasure. I want to thank you all for taking the time and participating today. And
Thank you, Labro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope
Thank
I
you.
hope
Thank
to
you.
see you soon next month. Some of you may be earlier as well. And have a good night.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a lovely evening.
Labro, if you
Bye.
have 3 minutes, if
Yes,
you have
yes.
more 3 minutes,
Of course.
I
of
want to
course.
ask you something.
So, goodbye,
Λοιπόν.
everyone.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
I have 3 minutes exactly because I have an appointment to do my booster, my COVID booster.
Πολύ, πολύ σύντομα
Yes.
να τον καλέσω τον καθηγητή που ασχολείται με την ιστορία της φυσικής αγωγής και όλα αυτά.
Ποιος είναι?
Άρα νομίζω ότι ταιριάζει. Αλμπανίδης λέγεται.
Άμα βεβαίως, άμα το ξέρεις τον
Έχει και
άνθρωπο.
βιβλιογραφία στα αγγλικά. Δηλαδή εγώ αυτό που είχα σήμερα έτσι στο μυαλό μου, 2-3 πέταξα λίγες λέξεις, από αυτόν είναι.
Εννοείται, άμα ο άνθρωπος
Ωραία.
θέλει, ενδιαφέρεται.
Όχι,
είναι
θέλει, τον
ανοιχτό,
ρώτησα και τον έβαλα να δει το Ινστιτούτο και να δει λίγο και το στυλ και αν τον ενδιαφέρει και να έρθει και στη Λέρο, γιατί
Ναι.
λέω διαφορετικά, Βαγγέλη, δεν έχει νόημα και ο άνθρωπος μου είπε ότι είναι πολύ ωραίος και κοινωνικός και...
Ακόμα και να μην θέλει να έρθει στη Λέρο, αν μπορεί να βοηθήσει
ωραία.
το τέτοιο, εννοείται ότι...
Ωραία. Μπορεί να μπει. Ωραία.
Ναι.
Γιατί εγώ ήδη του μίλησα και μου έστειλε και ένα πολύ ωραίο άρθρο δικό του στα αγγλικά που
Ναι.
έχει όλη αυτή τη φιλοσοφία από πίσω. Ωραία, το ένα είναι αυτό.
Πρέπει να το δούμε έτσι αυτό, δυστυχώς, από κάθε μεριά, όχι δυστυχώς.
Αυτό θα έλεγα, ότι και εγώ αυτό ήρθα σήμερα. Λέω, ρε παιδί μου, αυτό είναι ιστορικό, είναι κοινωνιολογικό, είναι χίλια δυο. Τέλος πάντων. Και το άλλο που θα σε ρωτούσα είναι, φαίνεται πολύ κολλημένο άμα ξεκινήσουμε από την αρχαία Ελλάδα και λέμε όλα αυτά, αλλά από ό,τι είπες και εσύ, έτσι το σκεφτόσουνα.
Μα δεν υπάρχουν άλλα, δηλαδή θα πάμε και αρχαία Ελλάδα, θα πάμε και στους Λατίνους. Αλλά
αρχαία Ισπανία και που λέει ο λόγος. Ωραία.
Ωραία.
Ωραία. Έχουν και από την Ισπανία άνθρωπο που ασχολείται με αυτά. Δεν ξέρω κατά πόσο θες να το ανοίξουμε.
Μα εννοείται, όσο θέλουμε μπορούμε. Όλη η Mediterranean region είπαμε.
Ωραία. Θα του το πω και αυτού νου. Ωραία. Θα το πω του Βαγγέλη δηλαδή να το πει. Αυτά. Δεν έχω τίποτα άλλο. Αυτό για την αρχαία Ελλάδα και για τους ιστορικούς. Ευχαριστώ.
Perfect. Εγώ ευχαριστώ, Νατάσα. Καλή συνέχεια.
Τώρα με τα αγγλικά μην ανησυχείς. Εγώ όσο μιλάω θα ξανοίγομαι. Δεν έχω ευκαιρίες να μιλάω αγγλικά. Γι' αυτό με ακούς λίγο τις ψάχνω τις λέξεις.
Είναι μια χαρά. Όπως βλέπεις εδώ πέρα όλοι είμαστε, δεν είναι κανένα δύο μόνο είναι αγγλικά.
Όταν θα μιλάω για το αντικείμενό μου πάω καλύτερα. Τώρα ήρθα και προετοίμαστη λίγο. Έγινε, ευχαριστώ.
Ciao, ciao.
Ευχαριστώ. Bye, bye.
Mehdi, do you need something?
What?
Do you need to talk to me about something?
No. I wanted to ask you which subgroup I should do something.
You can come to my subgroup so we can work together on this.
Okay, which one? The first one, yeah? You are the first one. Second one.
The third one.
Oh, you are the third one?
Mediterranean physical activity as part of the Mediterranean lifestyle.
Okay, I should find some data in this part, yeah?
We'll talk about it. Then we will divide the work. All right?
Okay.
I have to run. I'll talk to you later, Medis.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you.